is Alex Jafari, and we're going to learn about comparing objects attribute by attribute today. Um, the chapter that we're covering today is chapter 3, section 4. Once again, this is from the book AP Computer Science Done Right, that I'm the author of, and it's available on Amazon either as a EPUB or as a hardcover book. I'm joined by Irfan, and we're going to talk about equals. Irfan, can you tell us about what we learned in the last chapter?
Sure. First of all, hi. In the last session, we talked about conditional and comparison.
That's right. We learned about conditionals. What kind of things did we learn on conditionals? Do you remember?
We learned about the keywords if, else, and Boolean with some examples, and we learned how to use them.
Exactly. Yes, we learned about these keywords, else, ifs, and if. So today would actually be a fairly short session, but we're going to learn about equals. So let me just get this started. Okay. So, Irfan, how do you know that you and your best friend are not the same person? If you're both sitting in the classroom, how does your teacher know that you are different people?
I mean, we have different appearance, we have different ideas, different minds,
Yeah.
different names.
Yeah, exactly. So you definitely have different names, or, well, in your case, you have different names. People might have the same name. But you also look different. You have a different height and weight. But let's say there are two people that have very similar physical attributes and they have very similar names. We would check all their attributes to see if they're the same. So, like, let's say person A has a name, age, height, weight, everything. Because theoretically, you could meet someone that has the same name, age, and height, but different weight. So we want to check all these attributes to make sure that they're just different, right? Okay. So how do we do this in code? How do we check that this person and the other person is the same? So let's start a method. What's the first thing that we do when we want to start a method?
We start by the question.
Yeah, so the purpose statement.
Yeah.
All right. What's our purpose statement? We want to check if two people are the same. So what's our purpose statement here?
I think I have no idea, to be honest.
Okay, so our purpose statement is essentially check whether a given person is the same.
Okay.
Person is the same as this person. Okay, what's the next step in designing our method?
We'll have the signature with the output and the input.
Yes. So what's our signature?
I think in this case it's gonna be a Boolean because there's two choices available.
That's our output, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would do public Boolean. Let's name our method equals. Okay. What's our input?
So there should be a class. So that we have used before. So I think we have to call that one, right?
Which class?
The person class, we want to compare the persons.
Okay, so what's our output? What's our input?
It's the attributes of the person class, like the things that we've given, like height and weight and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so our input would be an instance of that person, right?
Okay.
We want the entire person because then we can check for their attributes. The other person. Anything else?
I think that's it, and we want it then to return us the answer.
Right, and what are we comparing the other person to?
To the person A.
Right, which is, how do we have access to it?
I don't know. How do you have access to it?
So this method is inside the person class. So we have access to this dot person or this dot, whatever attribute. So we're already inside the person class. We are just taking in another person to compare it to. This is a really important concept, so we need to make sure that we are understanding this. We have had this in previous sections when we have this dot whatever attribute, and that's how we have access to the fields. That's why in our previous sections we didn't have any inputs because this was the input essentially. So now I'm gonna do the first one just to kind of like explain this. So right now you're inside the person class and you have access to this person. So for example, you can say something like return this dot name. So essentially the way you would call this is, maybe this will be easier to write when I have this. Let's go through the design recipe and let's go through an example first. So let's say I have person Irfan and let's say that I have initialized this with your name, your age, your weight, and your height. Okay?
Okay.
And then I do something like, well, actually, it should be with a small e. I do something like Irfan dot equals, and then I have to give it a person, another person that are you equal to. So let's say your best friend Mateen. Okay?
Okay.
And this needs to return false. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And let's say if I do Irfan dot equals Irfan, this needs to return true, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So the reason why you have this dot name here is because you're calling equals method on Irfan. So you already have information about Irfan in the equals method.
Because you're in the class, Irfan.
Yes, you not class Irfan, you're in class person, but you're in the instance of Irfan.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. That's why you need to pass in Mateen because you don't have access to Mateen's attribute. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So now how do we check this? How do we check that Mateen's name is the same as Irfan's name? We do this with two equals. So one equals would just get you and set the name, right? But two equals, it's like a Boolean evaluation. So similar to how you would have like, let's say if you have age less than another age, this would return like a Boolean. Two equals also returns a Boolean. So you can do something like this dot name. So this would be Irfan's dot name. To how do we get Matin's name or the other person's name? I guess.
This dot other no other dot like name. Other dot name.
Other dot name, yes, because you have other passed in. Other dot name. So right now this would just return whether or not your names match. But you want to check for everything. You want to check weight, height, and age. So instead, you use the AND operator. Two ANDs are AND. And you would do the same thing here, where you do this dot age equals other dot age. And everything else, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
And in the last one, in the last conditional, you would have a semicolon. Let's just talk about how AND works. Let's say if I have 1 is less than 3 and 5 is greater than 4 and 3 is greater than 5. Let's say I have this conditional, okay?
Okay.
If I have this AND, these are all AND, what would this return at the end? Would it be true or false?
There are two truths and one false.
Mm-hmm. So with AND, everything has to be true. So this is true. This is true. As soon as it gets to this and it's false, it will return false.
Okay.
Okay? So this is, if you think about this logically, it makes perfect sense. If I ask you, hey, I want a fruit that is expensive and is green and it's round. Okay? You can't give me avocado because avocado is not round, but it's green. Or a cucumber is not round, so it doesn't satisfy all the conditions.
Makes sense.
Right? However, we have another logical operator, and that's called OR. Okay?
Okay.
If you have OR, then you only need one of them to be true, and it will return a true. So you can say, hey, I want a fruit that is green, or it's round, or it's expensive.
How do we show that?
So or in coding is shown with a different operator. We will learn it later, so we don't need to worry about how to code it. But I just want you to learn it in terms of like the difference in the logic.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
Okay, perfect. So for an AND, you need all the conditions to be true, otherwise it's false.
Yeah, I get this.
Perfect. So now that we have this, are you ready for the homework?
Let's do it.
Perfect. Homework. All right. Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but the Olympics are going well, and especially the ants Olympics, the Olympics that the ants are doing, until the salt shaker contest. So each athlete had to swim through a container of salt and make it out alive. Clive, the ant, gave up after much struggle and lost his mind a little bit. So he started to get philosophical about all the salt grains, and he thought about whether or not the salt grains are the same or different. Some grains look bigger, some are heavier, some are whiter. So we need to design a method to help Clive that compares two salt grains and returns whether or not they are the same. If they have the same weights or the same size or, any other attributes that you can think of, the same color, that would really help
Yeah,
Clive.
it's a very interesting question.
Excellent. I'm glad. All right. Well, have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye.